Are you like me and love gear in games? Does a table of equipment get your gear going? Not in like a weird way, I just like options. I'm a former Shadowrun player, and if you know anything about that, you know it has lots of dice and even more gear. So today I'm going to make a video about 5 pieces of equipment in Infinity that I want to see added to the game, or pieces of equipment that I want to see altered. The goal here is not more random crap for the game, but a meaningful addition to the game. If you have any ideas, please let me know in the comments below. Also, if you want to see more, remember to subscribe. The flu shot. Sick of Ariadna? As an Ariadna player, I'm not. But let's all agree that bears are ridiculous. Just depends if you think they're ridiculously fun or ridiculously annoying. But what if, like Panzerfaust to counter tags for cheap, we have a bear Faust for most, if not all armies, to counter bears for cheap? My name for such a wonder weapon is the flu shot. What this is a disposable 2-shot chest mine or blitzen in a template or hit mode that uses breaker ammunition. Essentially a breaker chain cult or a breaker rifle at Panzerfaust ranges. Now this will help against bears and Ariadna, or even units who have low or no BTS or lower BTS than they have high armor, like the Guja, Raicho, Yotim, thanks to AP. Now, Breaker is fairly threatening, but it's only BTS saves and AP. But what if we made this viral? A viral flu shot, if you will. So now it's a DA plus shock targeting BTS chain cult, or a viral Panzerfaust. That's a seriously threatening disposable ARO piece that can deal with some of the bigger terrors of the meta, and in general, as viral is a very strong, if slightly rare, ammo type. I understand this is a fairly targeted nerf to Ariadna, but I think with targeted gifting to factions that lack viral, this could be a really nice addition to the game. The major beneficiaries of this would be Panoceania, Ariadna, some of the Aleph and Nomad factions, and O12. If we see like at most a couple per faction, I think this could be a positive change in the meta. And to be honest, I'm still going to run bears and Cameronians regardless. They're just fantastics, and now I just have a new target for them. Defensive hacking device. Those familiar with N3 will remember a little device called the defensive hacking device. It was used to buff armies' hacking defenses with some supportware and defend the hacker and debuffing the opponent. Now I was thinking, what if we bring back the concept and 1 or 2 of the programs? So here's my pitch. Keep the name defensive hacking device. It will have 5-ish programs to help defend the hacker and the army. Program-wise, I think we give it Cybermask and Fairy Dusk. Maybe Zero Pain like in N3, but I'm not quite sold on that yet. And then we bring back an old favourite, U-Turn. What is U-Turn? Well, for those who don't know, it's an old program that made a guided missile strikes take a -3 to hit, which is very nice, and I think it could help with the feel badness of the guided missile strikes. You now have some form of recourse so you don't just get shot. The tags and some other units already have EMC guided -6, but the goal of this program would basically to help defend other units. This can help a guided missile strike being a 76% chance to hit a Viz 11 trooper dodging to a 62% chance, which is not much, but that's an increase in survivability. Another option here is we could also force the guided missile strike to become a face-to-face roll with the hacker's whip versus the guided missile bot's BS with a -3 mod. And a failure would send the missile back. Otherwise, the missile goes off as expected. Now that would be a fun alternative. Another program to bring back was a program that allowed fireteam duos even in vanilla armies. That is a bit redundant now that we have vanilla army duos, but what if the program allowed the hacker to duo with any rem or tag within its zone of control? I don't think this adds a lot to the game, but it could mean your hacker is now getting a free ride up the board while your tag or rem doesn't work. The order efficiency is nice, and I like the Pathfinder, and I want to buff them a little more. In saying that, Tachikomo might be a bit much. I think the original name for this program was something like Teamwork Pro or something, but I think a better program name is the Buddy System. To look back to existing programs, I think giving them Fairy Dusk and Cybermask would also benefit the defensive nature of this device. One helps the hacker's allies, and the other means that the hacker can avoid a fight entirely. After all, the best way not to lose a fight is to not fight. Personally, I think that's a bit of a cop-out, but it's still valid. Final program for the device. I wanted something that would pose a threat to other hackers or hackables in its zone of control. So I looked at the states and decided what could be added to a hacking program that wouldn't just be awful. And somehow I landed on stun. So next came the fluff justification, and then the name. Sensory Overload. A program that would confer a -3 to your opponent when they are hacked, and can only affect rems, tags, or enemy hackers. Damage 14 to make it a little rough. This means the hacker can try and at least bite back and prevent further attempts from targets to try and ARO or even end attack runs dead. Alternatively, you could stage dive your hacker into enemy repeaters to knock out Jazz before your heavy infantry or tag rolls in to outshoot things. So who would get this mismatched defensive hacking device? Largely it's the have-nots in the E-War game. So we're seeing this in Pano, Ariadna, maybe Hack. They have a good E-War game, and maybe in Left and Combined Army. Of course we'll give it to some female nomad character, so Corvus Belli can appease upper management on that one. Better grenades. So currently we have 4 types of grenades. 2 are smoke, or smoke adjacent, and outside of Steel Phalanx, Ariadna, and a few other factions, all 4 are kind of rare. So what if we made them slightly more commonplace, not like Smoke for Pan-Oceania, but a couple of knights and heavy infantry get grenades, or all dogs get a grenade to leverage their massive PH scores. I'm sure we could all think of a unit or two that could really use this new toy. But what if we expand this to make it a little more fun? Well, that's debatable with what I'm about to suggest. We have a good few different ammo types that I think would believably work as grenades. In my mind, Para, Stun, Mirror Ball or Reflective, and Breaker all make sense. Para grenades are a fairly simple concept. A grenade goes bang and then everyone looks like a Jackson Pollock painting and struggles to move. Stun grenades are just flashbangs but sci-fi. Probably a hugely problematic ammo type for spec firing, but I mean, it's better than EM's effect on attack. Mirror Ball or Reflective is essentially step between Smoke and Eclipse. Basically it's an FU to MSV ARO pieces and only them. Is it niche? Yes. Would I run one in MO if you gave it to any of my knights? Also yes. Finally is Breaker, the only direct damage suggestion, and it's a fairly good one. Mostly because it targets BTS and uses AP. This probably has a place in factions like Yujing and Nomads where they have a lot of Breaker already, but I would love to see this on my dogs, as it means I can start peppering tags before I super jump into melee and get on the old wombo combo. I think some of my suggestions have legs here, mostly the Stun, Mirror Ball and Breaker, since they are the most interesting for gameplay. The only issue is that Breaker is just better than regular grenades, so maybe buff them up to include AP or Shock, or just add AP grenades. Better Kayushka and Murugan. So this is a complaint about a weapon that like too little units have. Really more should use it because it's such an Ariadna weapon. So let's talk about the 2 multiple launch rocket systems in Infinity. First off, they're not awful. The ranges are fine, but the platforms they're on is also awful. The ammo is not bad for low tech, but like at the same time we have camouflage autocannon users and Uxia. Damage is good, but that's like one of the only really good things. But all this is fine. First of all, I understand why both use rifle ranges because of spec firing, but we can work around that to improve it. So let's improve them then. We'll start with the Kayushka first. Clearly the goal here is a missile launcher you can spec fire. It's not really working, is it? So to fix this, we're going to give it 2 modes. The first mode is basically going to stay the same, except we're going to swap the -3 and 0 range bands. So it goes -3, +3, long zeros, and then a -6. This represents a missile that's going to be lobbed to hit a general area, and balance-wise, it doesn't make speculative attack very silly. I'm half tempted to make this explosive ammo, but this is the only speculative attack weapon that uses double action, so I'm not going to push it. Next up, we're going to give it a second hit mode, in which we completely change the gun to have HMG range band, and now it's AP plus DA. No speculative attack here, so it represents a straightforward, I'm going to shoot a rocket at you. Now yes, this will always be used when you guided missile strike with Kayushka, but that already happens with missile launchers and its hits mode, so I don't feel bad. This also gets as close as possible to the community's wish to give the mule a portable autocannon, which, Corvus Belli, please do. Buff the BS on the mule, then do that please. Next up is the Urigan, which is more of an anti-personnel weapon. I like this, but we're going to change it up again. First is the blast mode. I think we give it the same treatment as above, swapping the -3s and 0s, and then we up the damage to 15. Same reason, it represents lobbing a missile downrange to shower the opponents with shrapnel. Now the hit mode. We're going to change it to use combi rifle ranges. So that's +3 to 16, -3 to 32, and then a -6 to 48. And dropping the damage down to 13 for balance's sake. This represents sort of just launching shrapnel down the range at people with a shotgun, but like a mop bucket full of shotgun shrapnel. Obviously this is a much better gun now, and makes the Mule TR bot really kind of solid. So we'll adjust the points necessary. This is easily 1 or 2 point more to kind of keep it in line with other TR bots. Now on BS 10 or 11 units, the Kayushka and Urigan are kind of bad, but I mentioned it should be on more. Which other units, you might ask? Well, it's kind of obvious, isn't it? But the two super heavy Silhouette 5 heavy infantry should have gotten it. Maybe a new Ratnik profile that is a heavy rocket launcher swapped out for the Kayushka +1 burst, trading burst for blunt damage. We'll probably get a few points cheaper, maybe 2 or 3 at most. The Blackjack would probably suit having the Urigan underslung like its SMG, and keeping a Panzerfaust for range to suit America's dominance of firepower. There are jokes about giving the Blackjack Sapper in combination with something like this new Urigan, and I think we could have a seriously threatening block of wounds right there. Obviously, we'd need to add suppressive fire to the Urigan since right now it lacks it, but regardless, I'd be honestly terrified by both new options on the heavy infantry. Now, there is one last bad boy that I think deserves these new improved multiple rocket launch systems, and that's the Chernobog. Why? Well, it's our massive and first main battle tag. I know lore-wise it's a bit more scrappy, but give it time for the faction to solidify in lore and make it more of a support vehicle as well. So let's give it a new profile. Chest mines, because strapping a claymore mine to a tag is just hilarious. And then we give it both the new Urigan and Kayushka, moving it from a main battle tank to straight up an artillery piece. Is it silly? Yes, but it does also spark joy. Assignable Oxbots. So this is one that was suggested in the IGL Discord as a way to make panel competitive and more interesting. I really like this idea, not just as a panel player, but as a lore lover, as panel is totally the power to just assign Oxbots to units that need it, because they're damn cheaper than a trooper. So, some issues before we begin. Basically, we're going to need to sit down and strictly define how we assign this and to whom. Some restrictions first. Panel troops only. Rules-wise, this means those without the mercenary and character classifications. This means it can be rolled into other armies, and it's not panel-specific, but it must be kept to that core army. This only really hurts stuff like Kaplans and I think Varangians, but I mean that can easily be adjusted. The owner must be deployed on the table as either a model or a marker, so no hidden deployment, airborne deployment, or infiltration. I'll need to add a camo profile for camo users, but that will be like 10 points-ish. This is going to be a 1 per model sort of deal, and you're not allowed to have this if you already have a peripheral control or sync loadout available. So no order sergeants or serfs getting ones because they already have the ability to take an Oxbot of their own. I'm allowing peripheral servant users here just because that means doctors and those with PALBots can just do a little more, and I won't really be breaking anything. I just refuse to buff the puppets and the pupniks more. Finally, all usual restrictions of controllers apply, so no coordinated orders and fire teams. So the profiles. I made a few design choices here. Regular flamethrower, as that fits the Oxbots loadout. The light shotgun and Eclipse grenade launcher. That's the one from the Gardo de Assalto, and that means we can give panel smoke, but this isn't silly smoke like Steel Phalanx or Ariadna. Besides, it's availability 3, so that's like at best 3 smoke launchers on BS 10. That's not going to break the bank. The Climbing Plus / Super Jump one is so that the Oxbots can follow around those with Climbing Plus and Super Jump profiles easily enough. And Super Jumping Oxbots are hilarious. Forward Deployment +4 allows them to link up with the pseudo skirmishers of panel and the forward deploying knights, or even add a sort of forward deployable mine to deter impersonation or Uxia, Brand, or Shinobi. Okay, so this is the odd one. Someone suggested during the initial discussion, and I sort of agreed with the concept, it's a mini TR bot, basically for objective rooms and room-to-room combat. I didn't want to give it a rifle or an SMG, so I decided on an assault pistol since they're pretty reasonably priced and fairly short range. I could have gone to neurocynetics, but at the same time I feel like you want to have an Oxbot to help you shoot and give people in the active turn a hard time as well. The Explode Oxbot is a meme, to be frank, but at the same time giving it to a lone Teutonic Knight or something really aggressive to push up the board, flame something or other, and then just find a fire team to suicide it into and watch them eat a couple of templates. Finally is a repeater just to improve panel Shianya's E-War a little. Overall, I think this would add a lot to Pan-Oceania's capabilities without absolutely breaking the meta, and I think we could see more solo pieces in both vanilla and sectorial armies thanks to this. So that was 5 pieces of equipment I think could be a really nice change to the game, and I would love to see something like this in N4 Human Spear or the 4th Offensive. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my ideas. Thanks for watching, and remember to do all that YouTube jazz.